Okay, speaking of politics, Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Kate. Good to be with you electronically.
Yes, you've been in studio a couple times. I know you're in an undisclosed location, clearly one that has all of your branding behind you. So I appreciate your Skyping in because we're right at the 11th hour of the budget, and the center put out a statement wanting to weigh in on it again as they're going through it up at the State House. Couple particular points that you wanted to make, but you called this budget deceptive and destructive.
Well, yeah, before I get to those, I think what you just heard from Mr. Lynch is one of our concerns with the budget, is that there's no direction or point or strategy to it. Oh, we'll take a little bit of the progressive ideas, we'll take a few conservative ideas, we'll take a few regular Democrat liberal ideas, and we'll just make sure we please everybody. Well, that's not a strategy. A budget needs a strategy behind it, and this budget has no strategy behind it. When you're 50th ranked in business and 48th ranked in jobs and opportunity and 45th ranked in family prosperity, yet there are no major reforms to address any of those issues, then what's the point of having a budget process every year if we're satisfied with being in last place, which I'm not, but apparently our political leaders are. And if we're just going to try to appease everybody all the time, like Mr. Lynch just said the Democratic Party strategy is, then we really don't get there. As far as the deceptive, the leaders are trying to tell you, political leaders, that there's no broad-based taxes in this new budget, when indeed there are. There's $32.5 million of new internet taxes that you, me, small businesses, and families throughout this state are going to have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be a safe haven for us. Now they're closing that, and they're going to charge us, and they're taking another $32.5 million out of our pocket. They're adding a cigarette tax. I just learned a few minutes ago we're adding some new tax and fee on Department of Motor Vehicle transactions for some kind of technology fee. So they're taxing us more, they're spending more, and a little bit of car tax cuts aren't enough. So once again, Rhode Islanders are being asked to pay a larger burden from what's already an oppressive level.
And one of the things you pointed out in your release, Mike, and I just want to point out and have you discuss as well, you mentioned specifically the state's promise to cut the sales tax to 6.5%. Explain that to viewers who might not know what you're talking about.
All right, so first let me set the stage. Right now, we pay three levels of sales taxes, or many Rhode Islanders do. We pay the traditional, which is a very high 7% tax on brick and mortar purchases, right? On those things we're used to paying sales taxes on. A couple of years ago, they added to our tax forms, the people that fill out in itemized tax forms, a use fee, which presumes that we buy on the internet tax-free, or we buy out of state and don't pay sales taxes back to Rhode Island on that. So they assume that everybody makes sales taxes, and so some percentage of your income we're already paying taxes for on our tax forms, a use fee. It just showed up on our tax form a couple of years ago. Now this year we're aggressively going to be paying internet taxes. So that's three levels of sales taxes we're paying. Now, 2 years ago, I think it was two, maybe three, maybe even longer, I don't know, time flies these days. State law says that if the state starts collecting internet taxes, the technical thing here is based on some kind of federal mandate, but when the state starts collecting internet taxes, we don't want to overburden the people of Rhode Island, so we'll cut the sales tax to 6.5%. That's what the law said. Now, I haven't heard anybody talking about dropping sales tax to 6.5%. Now, we're the sales tax people, you know.
You are the sales tax people, and do you think that?
We want to cut to 3%, but at least let's follow the spirit of the law. They can hide behind this technicality that we're not collecting sales taxes on the internet because of federal mandate, but they are aggressively collecting taxes on the internet. Let's follow the spirit of the law and follow the law and drop the sales tax to 6.5%.
And I'm sure you've had conversations with legislators about this. Were folks not just willing to take up the mantle with everything going on up at the State House right now?
Well, we have had conversations. With whoever you talk to, nobody really wants to take up the fight. We haven't made a major deal out of it until really just yesterday when we issued our statement So we know it's too late to do anything. We only learned 2 days ago about this new internet tax. Again, that's one of the deceptive things. All we heard, oh, no new broad-based taxes. No, well, yes, there are broad-based taxes. Yes, there are. So it's a little late to try to get something in the budget like that, but we will be pushing for this into next year's session.
Well, I appreciate putting out the release. It was up on Go Local if folks want to read the full statement from the center. But I just want to ask you, because if you heard a little bit of Bill Lynch being in here before, one of the things, as you said, there were elements from the progressive agenda, elements from regular conservative Democrats, and some even more kind of right-leaning as well. What do you see going on in the Democratic Party right now? The progressive Dems are pushing so hard, pushing for increased minimum wage, pushing for the earned sick time, an agenda up there. And as I said to Bill, that we had a Bernie Sanders victory here in the state. He seemed to be a little appeased today in the studio, as opposed to some of the statements that he's made, kind of firing off salvos against them. Is there really a rift between sort of the progressive side and the more conservative side and the Democratic side from what you see? And obviously, do they have to acknowledge the agenda of the progressive Democrats?
Well, let me answer that, if I could, in a Rhode Island way, and then at a national perspective, to bring in my trip recently to the White House, if that's okay. So locally, yeah, I hear your point. When we rank so poorly, it's because of the progressive agenda, the high taxes, the high regulations, even new bills being proposed like this paid time off, the higher minimum wage this year, the new energy taxes. All of these things are going to make Rhode Island a less friendly place for businesses, and therefore a less friendly place for families. So why you would take any portion of the progressive agenda that would make matters even worse? I mean, we're already last place in business climate. Why would we do anything worse? So yes, there is a rift. I do know that. I won't mention names, but I do know that many members in the leadership are concerned about the growing progressive influence. But if they're so concerned, I don't know why they give into it, right? On the other hand, looking at it from a national trend, what really is sad to me is I went to Washington, D.C. About 10 days ago, and we had a series of briefings with many people in the Trump administration, and in Congress, from the chief of staffs of many of the House and Senate finance committees, the chief of staff of the FCC, the FTC. We met with the president's national economic team on the White House grounds. And I can tell you that they're moving towards freeing the regulation burden, tax burdens on middle income, low income, high income, and businesses, on everybody, right? They're moving aggressively towards undoing the regulatory and tax state. And here in Rhode Island, we're moving in the opposite direction. We're imposing more taxes, more spending, more regulation. And nationally, this is the trend. Like them or not, Trump was elected by people who back that agenda. The red states, are dominating with this kind of agenda. Yet Rhode Island keeps its head in the sand and is stuck in this progressive morass, or swamp, I guess, if you want to use the term of the year.
The political parliament choice,
so
yes.
it's really disturbing to see Rhode Island just can't get out of first gear, or actually out of reverse gear and start moving forward.
So is that what we're going to continue to see from you, Mike? Again, you put the statement out yesterday with regards to the budget. As you said, late in the game for that 6.5%, but will you continue to push that issue throughout the year?
Absolutely. No, we're committed to it now as a company. This is our bread and butter issue, the sales tax. We found an issue here that's right in the law.
Yeah.
So it's hard to argue with, except for that technicality. But again, it's the spirit of the law. Well, we'll continue to push for all kinds of tax reforms. But again, the tax reform without spending cuts are meaningless. That's the thing. We spend too much in this state. New Hampshire, which ranks in the top 5 in many of those categories I just mentioned, where we rank in the bottom 5, they spend 40 to 50% less per person than we do. Spending is the problem in this state, and until somebody has the political leadership and courage to actually, the town of East Greenwich, I don't know if you should have somebody on from that. I don't know if you have, but they actually cut year-to-year spending in their budget. The actual number went down from before, so that they didn't have to raise taxes on their people. They want to make East Greenwich a more friendly place for consumers, for families and businesses. That is a great example to follow. You ought to talk to their town, whatever.
A lot of eyes are on East Greenwich with what's going on right now, especially both the town and the school side. So we did have one piece that was a reaction piece to it today, but you are right. There's a lot happening in East Greenwich right now that folks are kind of, as you said, zoning in on from both sides. It's an interesting exercise going on there right now. So we certainly will, Mike, and of course appreciate your taking the time and your undisclosed location with all of your logos behind you. You were
secret bunker in Cranston, Rhode Island.
The secret bunker. Well, Mike, I appreciate your Skyping in. We've, as we said, had you in studio, but put the statement out. Why don't you give you the chance to tell folks a little bit more about it, and I'm sure we'll have you back in studio soon.
Thanks always to you.
Okay. Thanks, Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and